You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Well, you know it's going to be a good show when on your way to getting the show ready, when you're like 15 minutes from air, the Daily Signal chat, which is the organization that I work for, everyone starts losing their minds because there's breaking news. Senator Chuck Schumer, the minority leader for the Democrats in the Senate, has decided, maybe after all, he doesn't want to put the entire Democrat Party through the horrible, horrible optics of a government shutdown, which, by the way, may be the first somewhat reasonable decision Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats have made since the November elections. But, hey, didn't mean he wasn't dragged kicking and screaming to that. Here's old Chuckles coming around to his senses and saying, you know what, maybe we actually will fund it.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms to the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down. There is nobody in the world, nobody, who wants to shut the government down more than Donald Trump and more than Elon Musk. We should not give it to them. And make no mistake, Democrats will continue to fight what Donald Trump is doing. Everything that Trump, Musk, and Republicans have done so far has a clear goal. Again, cutting taxes for billionaires, eviscerate Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
All right, so he just rambles on for a bit. I love that Chuck Schumer's out here suggesting that the person who wants a government shutdown the most is Donald Trump. Did you guys know that after a bill leaves the Senate, after it's passed the House, it then has to go to the president's desk for signing into law? I know that sounds kind of crazy, kind of out there. If Trump didn't want the government to be open, all he has to do is not sign the bill on his desk. He can veto it, say it's not good enough, send it back to the House. That didn't happen. So that's a no. But of course, the entire country is aware that Chuck Schumer despised this continuing resolution. He just had no choice about it. Here was Chuck just a couple of days ago saying they were going to shut it down. They weren't going to stand because this continuing resolution is terrible. That's terrible, terrible.
Mr. President,
the Democratic leader.
Funding the government should be a bipartisan effort.
It was.
But Republicans chose a partisan path, drafting their continuing resolution without any input
That's not true.
from congressional Democrats.
And I want to make this clear. You know why this isn't true? Because there was a massive negotiation process about what went into the continuing resolution. And Democrats said the only thing that we will accept is if you limit the constitutional authority of the President of the United States. And House Republicans said, well, number one, we can't do that. And number two, we're not going to do that just because you don't like who's in the White House. How about no? And so Hakeem Jeffries told all of the House Democrats, do not vote with Republicans. And normally that's enough. In Pelosi's day, there was the rank and file. And then you had Representative Golden, a Democrat, a young guy from Maine's 2nd, a Democrat who ended up voting with the Republicans in favor of the continuing resolution, making it, you guessed it, a bipartisan bill, passing the House into the Senate. And then it was up to the Democrats to shut down the bill because Republicans needed not just a simple majority. Democrats could filibuster. You need 60 votes for some things in the Senate. In fact, for a lot of things in the Senate. That's the rule. So the Democrats trying to suggest that, oh, well, why don't Republicans just use their super duper trifecta to get things done? It's not a trifecta. It's not. Republicans do not have 60 votes in the Senate. 60 votes in the Senate, yeah, that'd be the trifecta. That's not the case at the moment. And so you had Democrats like Jasmine Crockett, my favorite crackhead from Congress, who was out there saying the most wildly stupid political statements I have heard issued. You had Jasmine Crockett bragging about wanting to shut the government down because that would prevent Trump from firing federal workers, which is not only not true at all, it also is not something Americans don't care about federal workers at all. Americans feel screwed over by federal workers. But Jasmine Crackhead Crockett, you're walking into the Speedway to get your coffee in the morning. The crackhead starts yelling at you on the way in. Here's Jasmine.
In my opinion, if we're shut down, you can't be fired. And what does that mean? It does mean that people will not be paid, but it does mean that they will get their back pay. So hopefully we can stop some of the bleeding. We just saw that the Department of Education laid off 50% of their workforce. So I don't really understand why anybody would say, oh, we got to take the high road. Listen, he is decimating the federal government.
Hold on a second here. I was going to talk about the substance of what she said, but something caught me off guard. Jasmine Crockett's accent has been brought into question in recent months because there are clips from her young life and then when she first was running for Congress in which she just sounded normal. And now she's put on this like inner city accent. And I don't know if you know this, but I think she did like the Medea T thing where she ends like an R sound with like a T. Hold on, I want to catch this again.
In my opinion, if we're shut down, you can't be fired.
You can't be fired. Oh my gosh. Oh man. If you're going to fake a voice, maybe don't copy Tyler Perry. Just saying. If you're going to fake an accent, just saying. Anyway, Jasmine Crockett, embarrassing on multiple levels. Classic. All right, let's head over to one of the best things that I have witnessed. The campaigns on the left in favor of this pro-Hamas foreign national, not a citizen of the United States, on a visitor's visa, who was detained because Mahmoud Khalil openly supported acts of terror and terrorist organizations, things that would get you rejected on an immigration form. Today, the New York City imbeciles held a storming the Trump Tower protest. So they stormed the Trump Tower. Here's what they look like. For those of you who are listening, I'll try to describe it using work-approved methods. So imagine some really smelly, no deodorant barista-looking individuals in poorly fitting red shirts that says trying to free this Mahmoud Khalil guy, again, who is not a citizen of the United States. He doesn't have access to the First Amendment of the United States. It's for citizens. If you're a foreign national, it is expected while you are here that you will not endorse and incite violence or foreign terror organizations. That's by the Secretary of State standard. And by the way, I do want to point out, because this never ceases to make me cackle, their storming and trying to occupy the Trump Tower did in fact lead to more arrests and what will likely be more deportations. Chanting's a little quieter now. Oh, look at her or him. Look at that person. Very mad. Has the stony, chiseled wine chin there. Oh, so angry. How dare you? Fantastic. I love it so much. No one embarrasses themselves like those on the left. If you do want to hear the standard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, we got that queued up for you.
President Trump appealed to a lot of Americans during his campaign on free speech arguments and not suppressing speech, especially from the government. But your revocation of the green card, to many, is seen as one of the most anti-speech actions a secretary can take with his powers. How do you respond?
Yeah, when you enter this is an important point, and I'm glad you asked this question. When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, on a visitor's visa, okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities, I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would.
That is absolutely correct, from the best Secretary of State we've had in a long time. Well, what about free speech? You do not, as a guest in this country, not as a citizen. As a citizen, you want to support a terror organization? Sure. Probably you're going to get an invitation to come on The View. But if you are not a citizen in this country, no. We'll be back in a second for the radio crew. With the live stream, we're going to talk about Columbia University. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, I got to be real. I knew that Columbia University, after the Trump administration canceled over $400 million in grants to the university, and after the Trump administration showed no signs at all of slowing down on cutting all of this funding for nonsense, ridiculous, not the R word I'm thinking of, projects in various universities, I knew that some of these universities were going to cow. I knew it was going to happen. But alas, I must share. You know, I wasn't expecting Columbia University to be the one to crack first. So Columbia University, according to the Associated Press, now says it has expelled, suspended, or revoked degrees from some students who seized a building during a pro-Palestinian protest. You know, couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. Womp womp, I believe, is the phrase that I'm going to throw out there. But I'll tell you what I was really, really looking forward to is the reason behind it. And this is from their statement. Today, the Columbia University Judicial Board determined the findings and issued sanctions to students ranging from multi-year suspensions, temporary degree revocations, and expulsions relating to the occupation, blah, 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 blah. With respect to other events taking place last spring, the Judicial Board's determinations recognized previously imposed disciplinary action. And so they basically talk about they're just enforcing universal policy. I'm sure that enforcing university policy is what's behind it, and not the fact that you want money. You're so desperate, your little professors realize no one else is going to fund their nonsense transgender mouse studies. And by the way, that again is someone who's worked in education for a while. You would be shocked at the kind of university grant processes and procedures that various professors are desperately just submitting all they can for. They're so desperate for your money. They want it so badly. And the projects they put forward are like, I would rather fund 4th grade science fair projects compared to what some of these university professors have put up. When I was in my graduate cohort at Ball State University, there was a girl, at least I think it was a girl, in my cohort who submitted a grant proposal, I kid you not, to test the effects of condoms on cow udders. She wanted $87,000 to conduct a study for condoms on cow udders. She was an education major. And yet they're so angry and entitled. They want your money so bad. If you've graduated from college, they will hound you from now until hell freezes over to get as much money. They can squeeze out as much money from you as humanly possible from donations, as though paying the university $80,000 wasn't enough. I'm thrilled to watch all of these young, entitled college students who think that because they have a degree from insert name here university, that makes them some entitled, beautiful members of society and not the spoiled brats that they are. And they don't deserve anything special at all. Fantastic. By the way, I should point out that we are expecting a judge reversal on the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil. Sorry, little too much phlegm there. Federal judges are in a special state. I mean, so many things back and forth, freezing and injunctions saying that Trump can't fire individuals from the federal government. Now he can. Now it's a scam. Now it's not. We're going to bring in Logan Hall. He's actually waiting on the line, and discuss one of the most insane processes in federal government right now. It is the federal justices run amok, and it's going to end with some serious SCOTUS ramifications. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We're going to pick up the radio folks from commercial here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Whether you're joining us, radio, TV, podcast, you know the whole list. We're thrilled to be joined by one of the greatest dudes out there in the young conservative movement. I think we can still call ourselves young. I hope.
I haven't broken 30 yet, so
I know that's me. That's this year, so I'm clinging to it as long as I can.
me too.
Logan Hall from over at The Blaze, man. Have you been following? I know that it's hard to follow because it's just every 15 seconds. These federal judges just deciding, just carte blanche, that Trump can't do something.
Yeah, willy-nilly, right?
I mean, it really is. I look at, there was this Politico posted this earlier today. Tens of thousands of fired federal workers must be reinstated immediately, judge rules. And it's U.S. District Judge William Alsup. He called it a sham strategy, mass firings. What, where are they getting this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I saw somebody say today that Trump could find the cure for cancer, and a judge would, one of these federal judges would end up overruling him. So it's kind of crazy. Or somebody said that, you know, if we were in a war, one of these federal judges would be at the table trying to command overruling where Trump commands the troops to go. It's crazy. But it gets to the heart of the issue of we really have this government that is out of control. Each branch is sort of all out of whack. Does the president actually run the executive branch? Do all these agencies run it? Does this fourth branch, this bureaucracy, run the executive branch? Does the judicial branch run the executive branch? It's nuts. And at the end of the day, the American people gave Trump a mandate for vast disruption and destruction of this bureaucracy and this thing that was holding all of us hostage. And at the end of the day, they didn't vote for all of these judges, these activist left-wing judges in left-wing districts in blue states and blue counties all over America that were placed there, many of them placed there by the Biden administration to do exactly this, to overrule the will of the American people. And eventually, hopefully we get this sorted out. But if things keep going in the way that they are going, some decisions are going to have to be made by the executive branch to say enough is enough. Like we're not playing along with this game anymore.
I'm not concerned. If I said I was concerned, I would be just lying right through my teeth. I'm amused, and I'm just kind of waiting. Like, the season finale's coming up where, regardless of, Amy Coney Barrett doing a little flip-floppity, whatever, here and there, when the Supreme Court finally does decide it's enough, and we've got judicial decisions about security clearances and what parts of federal buildings that the Trump administration can and can't say people should go to, which is just, it's wild.
Or ruling that you have to disperse billions of dollars in foreign aid somehow.
You give those transgender comics to Colombians like the Constitution intended.
Just as the founders intended. Yes.
Yes. The top of Jefferson's mind, he's like, we better write this so someday somebody can spread atheism in Nepal. Truly our greatest work as a country.
Or do experiments turning mice transgender, right? Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It is insanity. But this, again, it goes back. If we are going to have a constitutional government, we cannot allow these rogue judges to just run rampant over what the American people want. And this is the problem that we've seen for these past 20 to 30 years, where it's like, okay, well, who is actually in charge? Are the citizens in charge of their own government or not? And it seems like we're starting to get some of that back now, but these judges are doing everything they can to stand in our way.
Well, that's why I've said that at some point you are going to see the Supreme Court come in and issue a decision that these federal judges forget about whether or not they're going to like it. It's going to drastically reduce the size and scope of what federal judges on both the left and the right have been doing over the last 10 years regarding injunctions. And anytime a president signs something into law that American people either, on the right would despise, or even some good things that some on the left would despise. You have some federal judge that goes in and like throws the Pokeball, calling out injunction to battle, and then it just stops. And it prevents Americans from feeling the consequences of their own actions, Congress and the presidency. And SCOTUS is going to come through, I would argue, probably within the next year. And you're going to see the injunction power of federal judges narrowed super significantly. And then they're just going to be, a bunch of cucks sitting there watching the rest of the country function.
Yeah, one would hope so. I don't know how much, right after that ACB ruling recently, I don't know how much faith I place in the Supreme Court necessarily. One would hope that happens. But even at the end of the day, the judicial branch is not the executive branch.
Correct.
Okay? Trump is in total control of the executive branch according to the Constitution. It's one president. It's not anybody else. It's not rogue bureaucrats. It's not judges.
It's not a council. It's not an oligarchic consortium. It's one dude.
No, it's one guy, and he is allowed. It's necessary that he runs that branch as he sees fit in accordance with the will of the American people. And anything that is impeding that is in direct violation of the Constitution. I don't care what some judge says. And maybe, Trump is very Jacksonian in many ways. And maybe at some point he will be forced to say, okay, the Supreme Court has made their decision. Now let them enforce it.
If you are in a position where that occurs, I will say there's a sideshow that's going to go on that perhaps not many were looking to. The establishment wing of the Republican Party has been so emaciated, so hollowed out because of countless defeats that many have delivered for the party over the last couple of years, that there really aren't many in prominent positions who are going to be able to stand up at their little lecterns and go, actually, we really aren't a fan of this kind of attitude from the president. And I mean, have you missed Mitt Romney or Meghan McCain or any of these, Gwendolyn diddlers since they've gone off into their sorry, sad corners?
No. And again, the American people are with Trump. They're not with the Supreme Court. They're not with Congress. I mean, have you seen Congress's approval ratings recently? It's terrible. No, the American people support Trump above anything else, above any other politician, above any other institution. All of their institutions have been burned, their credibility destroyed. Okay, so we have to get back to some semblance of normalcy and a Republican form of government. And when you see these things that are just these insane power grabs by these judges, tell them to shove it. I mean, who cares about the whining from the establishment? Oh, our norms. Oh, all these norms. Well, the norms were terrible. Okay, you destroyed our country, and we're trying to fix it now.
I want to level it this way, and at least as we're looking at long-term fixes for the country. The U.S. Congress has a considerable check and balance system for the executive branch, right? Through the power of the purse, with funding federal agencies, through the subpoena process and the holding people in inherent contempt. Man, I wish we would use that jail cell underneath the Capitol again. And then, of course, the executive branch also has its checks and balances in nominating people to judgeships. And then, of course, to veto laws sent forward by Congress and calling a joint session, things like that. But as for accountability measures that keep justices in check, I'm hearing a lot of buzz on the social media that we need to impeach these justices right now. Do you have any idea about how that process would work, or if there's a measure for it? Because as someone who's read the Constitution, I'm not seeing explicit directions listed on getting rid of bad federal judges.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible to impeach judges. These judges are all created by every single one of these. The only one in the Constitution that's set up is the Supreme Court. Okay, all of these other courts are set up by Congress, and they were signed away by the wave of a pen. They can be taken away just as easily. Now, I don't know if the impeachment process would necessarily work if you would be able to get the votes to impeach some of these people. I mean, I commend them for their efforts.
This would be a congressional impeachment vote?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah,
Does it have to go through the same conviction and removal process in the Senate as well?
Yes, yeah, and I commend the Republicans who are saying it's time for this, and I agree with them. But at the end of the day, you can do that, and even if you don't impeach them, like some of these people just have to be ignored. I think. I mean, some of these guys, like I saw one was like Judge Amir Ali. Like you have these foreigners, and these like DEI judges that the Biden administration put in to protect DEI policies and foreigners. That's their sole job. I mean,
right. To be clear, these are individuals with citizenships to other countries than the United States who are federal judges in this country.
Yeah, and so they were put in there to protect all these foreign aid measures and all these foreign countries that they're actually loyal to, and all these DEI positions that they get appointed to and then are supposed to protect for other people just like them. At the end of the day, these people are not who Americans elected to run the government. They elected President Trump. If you go back and read, if you go back and even read like FDR, a big hero to the left, one of their big heroes. FDR essentially bullied Congress and threatened to pack the court to get what he wanted done
openly.
So I think Trump is, we are kind of in this turning, like this kind of a big moment in American history where we have to change course as a nation. And I think Trump recognizes that, and he should push, you could just say in the light of FDR, he should try to use as much power or close to as much power as FDR did. What's the problem with that?
It would be an interesting thing to see.
There's precedent for it. It's completely possible. It's not far from, people could say like, oh, Napoleon said, he who saves his country violates the law. Okay, well, you don't even have to look to like Napoleon or any other foreign government. There are people that have held the position of the president before that have used power in this way to change course as a nation and get us back on the right track. And I think Trump is entirely justified in doing that.
I've got a hot take here, and then I'll let you go after this. I think that the Congress of the United States should be able to vote to push a Supreme Court case to the top of the pile. I'm tired of this long. There's like this 815 case line. They're dealing with like somebody's civil lawsuit that's like not relevant to anyone at all. And there are massive cases and serious issues that Americans want to see dealt with. I mean, the Supreme Court was never supposed to operate at this level where they have a million cases on down the line that they're going to hear and then deliberate on. And it's taking ages when real damage is being done. I'm saying a measure in which we get to change the order of what cases are seen by like some kind of a vote from the House and the Senate. I don't know. I think that would be useful.
Or Trump can just use his bully pulpit. One way or the other, I agree with you. I think something I'd like to see be pushed to the top ASAP is birthright citizenship. And this
bingo. It's exactly what was in my mind.
Yeah.
Because once birthright citizenship is settled, that gives a lot of clarity on these individuals walking around with green cards, thinking that makes them just as much citizens
American as you and me, Tony.
And with that said, Logan Hall from Blaze, it's so good to have you on, man. We don't get to chat enough, but love the stuff you guys are doing over there, and keep up the good work, man.
You too, man. Thanks.
We'll be back in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
It's time for some awful tweets. Here's how this works. Jerry Lopez is out there on the line, and he and I take all of the garbage, horrible, terrible, smelly, brain-dead takes on every social media platform you can find. And then we suffer. So you guys have the ability to make us suffer just as much as Chuck Schumer does. Jerry, my man, Are you ready for a painful week of some awful tweets?
Hey, listen, the weather's so nice outside, we might as well even it out with some awful tweets tonight.
Well, boy, do we have stuff ready to go. We're going to start off because we got a lot to get through. We were flooded in the inboxes this week. First of all, an article that was a bit interesting. Is drinking coffee racist? How drinking coffee perpetuates white supremacy, created by black people and for black people, and now a pillar of white supremacist capitalism. Oh my gosh. If you consume coffee, you're helping an industry built on racism. Jerry, what in the blessed bleep is this?
I don't know, man. It sounds like they're trying to colonize coffee at this point. If you ask my abuela, she'll tell you Cubans invented the cafecito, which is a lot better than a standard coffee. So, I mean, just to think that that's where we're at as a society, where we're claiming who created coffee and you're supporting white supremacy if you drink it. Like, don't we have bigger things to worry about?
I would certainly hope so. But since you mentioned Cuban coffee, a shout out to Cafe Bustelo and the liquid crack that
there
is.
It is.
Not keeping my soul going. All right, we have next. We got a wild take. But anyways, Senator John Fetterman was talking about how the left is really screwing up the whole resistance thing right now. Every once in a while, Senator Fetterman is Senator Betterman. At least when he's talking, not when he's voting. He says, the weeks of performative resistance from those in my party were limited to undignified antics. Voting to shut the government down will punish millions or risk a recession. I disagree with many points in the CR, but I will never vote to shut our government down. And you know it's blue sky, because this guy named Ken White, who goes by, I guess he went by Popat back in the day, he said, I never thought I would become pro-stroke.
I mean, what's more Democrat than that, right? They really don't care about anybody. As long as you go for the agenda that they're on in that moment, that's all they care about. It's kind of like that sign that says, or the shirt that you have, I believe, that says, I support the next thing. That's all they care about. Just, you better support the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing.
I mean, just what a horrible, horrible thing to say. Yikes. All right, this next one's from Tommy Lahren. This is a right-wing fail on this one. Tommy Lahren on her show over on Outkick, she said, look, I don't want biological men in women's sports, but always how you know it's going to be a terrible tweet. Anywho, but I don't think it's appropriate to purposely be mean to somebody and misgender them just for the sake of it. She's talking about the dude from Delaware with a wang who wears skirts in Congress. Do you think it's mean to misgender someone, Jerry?
Man, this one's a hard time because we interviewed her yesterday on the Hammer and Nigel show, and I support a lot of stuff she says, but I live in a reality where women are men and women are women and men are men, and I'm under no obligation to facilitate your mental health issues. You get to decide what you want to be called. I don't have to support it.
Look, you can dress up like a dog all you want. I ain't calling you Scruffles, and I'm not scratching behind your ear. That's not going to be a thing. Look, you can wear as many skirts as you want.
I can't even identify as a guy that gets paid a day early. Like, let's be honest.
All right, this next one's from Rob Rousseau. This one was wild. I am he who added this awful tweet to the list. Rob Rousseau, a straight up communist from Canada. I mean, just insane take. Says, it's time for Canada, Australia, Europe, and the rest of the world to extricate ourselves from the rapidly sinking ship of the U.S. empire and embrace the Chinese century.
I mean, there's no better beta comment that you're going to find than that, right? It's not like, let's stand up on our own and start a revolution for our people. It's like, no, let's just suck off the teat of the Chinese government next.
Is a wild thing. And everyone, of course, was dunking on him. Later on, he said, history will prove me right. Okay. Well, that would be the first communist.
Get done without the Americans in history.
Stupid. All right. This next one's from Ben and Jerry's. Today is National Abortion Provider Appreciation Day. We're just making up holidays. I swear to God. Anyway, we stand with abortion providers today and every day. A little ironic, this is coming from an ice cream company, just a little. I know it's a left-wing socialist like ice cream company, but like abortion day ice cream company? Really? I thought you were supposed to like kids, not kill them.
Listen, this one hurts the most, mostly because it has my name affiliated with it in the title, Ben and Jerry's. But like you said, this isn't even a real thing. Are we just making up days of appreciation? That's where we're at now. And Ben and Jerry's doesn't have something to worry about other than ice cream.
Well, I mean, again, I do enjoy the linking of the killing of the kids with the ice cream, because the irony is a little bit lost. Rain on your wedding day's got nothing on this. All right. This next one's from Politico. This one I loved for sure. Republicans have hated universities for years. Anti-war protests gave them a reason to punish them. Did you think that the pro-Gaza, the pro-Hamas protests were like anti-war, like killing the Jews and like sweeping Israel free of Jews and Christians? That's anti-war?
Yeah, from the river to the sea, that's anti-war, huh, Tony? Like that's how bad the education's gotten now. They don't even know that what they're doing is they're openly calling for genocide of Israel, of Jewish people in Israel.
Well,
that is ridiculous by itself. The left has ruined college campuses.
I did actually go and look up who the reporter is. It's this guy named Irie Sentner, which is a name. The article is him whining about how the White House has treated Columbia University. It just so happens he's a graduate of Columbia University. So caught him red-handed. Womp womp. All right, this next one's from Amtrak, because Southwest announced they're no longer doing the free checked bags. And so Amtrak, the ever-reliable U.S. train service, Amtrak, got out there and said, guess we're the only ones doing free baggage now. And then in the comments, it got a little bit rough for him. So a friend of mine, friend of the show, Brad Range, he asks, how long will it take me to get from St. Louis to Orlando? And they were like, somewhere between 48 to 51 hours. Dude, as opposed to a Southwest flight from St. Louis to Orlando. What in the world, dude?
You're telling me you wouldn't trade an extra 48-hour trip to save $100-something in baggage fees? Come on, man. Are people still doing that? People are still riding across the country on Amtrak?
I'm just shocked. It's such a. By the way, that's less than a. That's a 2-hour 0-minute flight. But also, he's like, okay, well then, what does it cost? And they're like, sorry, prices aren't given via social media. Amtrak is just awful. Okay. This next individual, this was sent to us this morning, said, at this point, I just hope that Donald Trump bleeps everything up so bad that we end up with this map in 2028. And it's 52 electoral votes to a blue 486. Jerry, have you ever hated the president so much that you just wanted the country burned to the entire ground?
No, but I did see the opposite of this on the last election, where the whole country voted for Donald Trump. The fact that Indiana and other strong red states are blue on this shows me that this person has no common sense at all. The only thing they did was make the southern states red. And what's the other one? Is it New Mexico, red?
Yeah, it's not looking too good for him. All right, next one. We'll skip the Democrats complaining about the funding extension for a second. This is a little hometown thing. So those who are outside of Indiana, part of our national audience, Steak and Shake, which was a pretty decent burger joint. They are the first national chain, to reintroduce beef tallow fries. I've had them. I had them this week. They are fantastic. It's like stepping back into childhood. They're delicious. Well, the Indianapolis Star, one of the USA Today Kinnett outlet papers that is currently on its last dying breath, wrote an article, Steak and Shake cozied up to MAGA and MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, with the rollout of fries the company said is cooked in 100% tallow beef. Movement leaders question the process. See link below. Can they cover anything objectively at all? At all?
I mean, the sad part about this is you would think they're in the food industry and there's some competitor. I don't understand what's wrong with people being healthier these days. And listen, they didn't get rid of fries. From what you just said, they're delicious. This is a win for everybody.
I mean, it really is a case of headline versus reality. But alas, that's all the time that we've got for awful tweets right now. Jerry, take care, and we'll catch you in just a bit, my dude.
Yep, catch you next Thursday.
All right, we're going to let the radio folks head over to commercial. This is the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, crew, we're going to go ahead and get started on a few things while we're waiting for the radio team to shuffle on back from that FCC required commercial break. There's a little bit more on the quick news side of things. I know. You thought that Chuck Schumer was maybe the only thing going on today. Well, not even in his goofy loafer-wearing mind is he the only thing that's going on. The Russia-Ukraine war situation, trying to get Russia to the table, met a rather interesting turn of events. So Ukraine accepted Rubio's deal for the ceasefire, and then immediately there was a Russian state official who said no. And then there was another Russian state official who came out and said, oh, maybe we do this. Who's to say? And then you had a press conference today in which Vladimir Putin, I'm not going to play the press clip because it's not translated to English and I don't speak Russian. So Putin came out today and said, well, we're in favor of a ceasefire, but we would need terms, a series of terms. And then he called for a series of terms that were like really bonkers. So President Trump was asked about whether or not Russia was going to accept the terms of the ceasefire or not. They haven't officially accepted or rejected the ceasefire. I've seen a million headlines claiming otherwise, but the official Russian state position and the statements made by Russian officials, except for one state guy who was shut up very quickly, is they haven't really rejected it yet. They definitely haven't, signed on yet either. But here was President Trump asked about this today, and I got to be real with you. It's a pretty interesting answer.
Putin just said he is open to a ceasefire, but he does still have some concerns. He suggested that you two should speak directly. Do you have plans to speak to him soon? If so, when? Are you confident you can get this across the table?
Sure. He did say that today. It was a very promising statement because other people are saying different things, and you don't know if they have anything to really, if they have any meaning, or I don't know. I think some of them were making statements. I don't think they have anything to do with it. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him. But we have to get it over with fast. Every day people are being killed. It's not like, as we sit here, 2 people will be killed. Think of it. 2 people are going to be killed during this little period of time. Thousands of people a week are dying. So we really don't have very much time. We have to make this fast. It shouldn't be very complicated.
So again, the Trump team currently has, I believe, Stephen Witkoff, the negotiator, heading over to Russia to hopefully push a few things along. We're going to see. I'm hopeful that given some of the measures that are put on the table, given some of the things that are moving forward, at least in regard to Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, in regard to the United States threats and leverage on the Russian economy, that we could possibly see a closer end to the conflict. Right now, Putin says a peace agreement within a year is out. That's empty. And the reason that is empty is because when you start bringing objections to a deal to a table, and you start saying, well, I don't want security forces here, I want a buffer zone here, I want this region, this territory here. We'll get to that in a second. We're going to grab the radio crew from commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal.
I got jacked, I was on the same track. Back up. It's the Tony Kinnett cast on 93 WIPC.
So Putin's obfuscating a smidge, a smidgen here, on whether or not he's open to certain terms in a ceasefire and a longer-term peace deal. The Ukrainian government at this point is recognizing it needs to work with the United States basically unilaterally. This is what Trump wanted. And now Rubio's going to have to work some magic. And he's going to have to work some magic to get Russia to the table. Trump did suggest today that there are some severe points of leverage the United States can bring to the table. And the media said, okay, what are those points of leverage? And he said, I'm not telling you what those points of leverage are. And I saw some snarky comments. I'm going to be real with you. Negotiations? Diplomacy is not supposed to be done in front of the general public. Diplomacy is a card game where you have your cards. And if you have your cards and you hold them correctly, your opponent does not know what cards you have. what you are willing to do, what you aren't willing to do, and what you are and are not willing to do based on the cards in your hand. The United States is already down one because it's negotiating on behalf of another country who is losing the war. So the idea that Trump isn't going to come out and say, yeah, I would, we'll slap a NATO base right next to the border over here if they don't do what we want, or we'll blockade ports, or we'll cut off regional. He's not going to say that here. And by the way, we have seen Trump before talk about the concept. Trump tells a story of talking with President for Life Putin of Russia and saying that maybe he would bomb Moscow, maybe he wouldn't, who knows? If Putin did this, you never know. Trump be crazy. He'll do what he wants. And that scared Putin. You think that Trump has really changed all that much in like 5 years? No. And so when you're looking at these negotiations, the United States does have cards to play, but negotiating out in front of the press so then the other team can see what your cards are and can see what you are and aren't willing to do, that ain't the move. That's dumb. Oh, but we really want everything to be transparent. Guys, you're not transparent about matters of force against an enemy nation or any other nation. Doesn't have to be an enemy, any other nation, period. You don't show your cards on diplomatic requests and negotiations. You do not show your cards on military actions like Obama and Biden used to do. We're going to drone strike the Houthis in like 3 days, Jack. We'll show them who's boss in 72 hours. Lasagna. That was stupid. The Trump administration's policy at the present time is, we're going to do this thing. And that's if they're in a good mood. If they're not in a good mood, then you get a press release at about 3 p.m. Oh, yeah, 6 hours ago, yeah, we bombed Somalia. Yeah, a lot of ISIS terror leaders dead. That's how foreign policy should operate in the government. On the diplomatic level, too. This is one of the reasons that the USAID thing was such a scandal. The reason it was such a massive, incredibly large scandal is that the USAID fund was created for the President of the United States to blackmail and cajole other countries during the Cold War. That's what it was for. It was a little private slush fund so that the president could go to the leader of Guatemala or Honduras or Nicaragua when the Soviets were like, let us through the Panama Canal, or we're going to build our own through one of the other Central American countries. And so the president of the United States then went to Central America and bribed presidents not to work with the Soviets, not to take aid from the Soviets. That's what USAID was for, and then it became a disastrous abomination. The president is supposed to have leverage to deal with foreign policy. He's the commander-in-chief. It is a cutthroat world out there. The idea that the United States should be playing shucksy doodles, beaver cleaver, love and hugs with everybody is extremely naive. Either the United States is going to be the chief hegemony on earth, or it's not. And every other actor to step up and take that throne, and it'll be somebody, is infinitely worse for the American people. I'm not talking about the rest of the world. It benefits Americans when the President of the United States and his cabinet is strong. And that brings us to the flip side. So what does Maxine Waters read out of this? I know you're really excited to hear what Maxine Waters' aged corpse has to say about this. Well, I mean, the Democrats are still letting her speak, which is regarded by all as a really bad move. Check it out.
What does Trump expect? Oh, I believe he expects violence. I believe he expects confrontation. I believe he's working toward a civil war.
I love it when she says things like that. She says, I believe he expects violence. As though the left hasn't been running around saying, yeah, set Teslas on fire to protest Elon Musk and burn down their dealerships and their charging stations. All the left getting out there and saying, you got to do something, you got to hold stuff up, you got to disrupt things, you got to commit acts of violence like they did during the Summer of Love, that mostly peaceful protest. I'm not confused, because in Maxine Waters' case, it's either extreme ignorance or it's just plain evil. It's one of the two here. Either she's that stupid or she's that evil. To gaslight the American people, no pun intended, by suggesting that, yes, it's Donald Trump who's stoking the violence. I don't see Trump supporters running around setting vehicles on fire at present. The last time that Trump supporters did something uncouth was January 6th, and that's such a botched nightmare for the left. Since they've tried to bring that up, the January 6th committee had to run tons of files through the virtual shredder, so they didn't enter the public sphere. Can I get a Ray Epps? So if we're going to get out here and play ball, accusing Trump and accusing Musk of being 17th century rulers over an unruly people ain't the way to do it. Chuck Schumer getting out there, Donald Trump wants to shut down the government. Why? Because then he'd have ultimate power. No, that's why you caved. You had this big front all ready to go. We're going to stand up and we're going to shut the government down. The people will understand. American voters who don't constantly tune into the news, who aren't in the political entertainment group of fellow suffering individuals that we are, the average American doesn't really care about the intricate chess-like moves surrounding a government shutdown. They don't want the government to be shut down, and they don't want the economy to come to a dead halt, and they don't want illegal immigrants running around causing general chaos. And when those things are disrupted, they're not particularly thrilled. So Chuck Schumer caves because he realizes that it's already looking rough in the midterms as it is. All right, radio crew, we're going to see you tomorrow. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, a little bit of a last something here, a little bonus tonus, you might say. For those who are tuning in for the first time, bonus tonus is a little something after the general hour of the show that we give as just a little something, just for you, that we thought that you would enjoy. And I have two things. Number one is, remember how the Trump administration came in and said, you know, there's a lot of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, affirmative action style stuff that's putting unqualified individuals into air traffic control positions. And the left said, how dare, have you no decency, sir, that you would suggest the Biden administration, who put racial quotas and gender quotas on things, would dare give individuals who were not qualified a position in such an important thing like an air traffic controller position. How could... I am shocked, sir. Stabbed at the very heart, my bleeding liberal organs. And it turns out, because it always seems to turn out like this, that we now have footage, according to the Daily Mail, not a right-leaning outlet, by the way, according to the Daily Mail, that Shelton Snow, an air traffic operations supervisor at the FAA and a prominent figure inside the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees, has been allegedly caught on undercover audio explaining how he would help, quote-unquote, minority air traffic candidates cheat on their entrance exams. I was told that the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion movement was all about going out and finding even more competent individuals. They just happen to be a different color. That they were just as that we were just going out, we were just spreading the word to places that, as though there's like an inner city community with primarily black students, where like everyone walks around like trying to keep the young black children from hearing about becoming an air traffic controller. That's the issue. That really, it's just no one's ever told them that they could be an air traffic controller. That's why we have to tell them that they could be. That's what we were told for years. That's what I was told when I was an administrator at Indianapolis Public Schools. And I was told by my colleagues, the other instructional coaches and directors of various subjects, well, it's actually that these children have never been told they could be something, as though a young Hispanic child in the district is constantly told that all they're ever going to be is a crop picker. Well, that is what, Democrat Congress people seem to think, is that Hispanic people are just a bunch of crop pickers and office cleaners. But I seem to remember that the entire idea of colorblindness was telling people that anyone could become anything. Well, I guess part of the equity initiatives through the Biden administration and through the Obama administration before that, those were just, sometimes you just got to help people, to fix those racial quotas. Here is some of the audio, by the way. It's special.
Watching the Suburban associate members, brothers and sisters, listen. It's been a really busy time for me these past 4 days. I know that each of you are eager, very eager, to apply for this job vacancy announcement. And trust, after tonight, you will be able to do so. I am asking that you give me another 15 or 16 hours. Allow me to go to...
Okay, so he's like, I'm going to help you out. Okay, maybe just do a little study session. Hey, I tutored people in college. When I was teaching, I'd have like after school study sessions. You know, help some kids while I was watching the detention rabble? Absolutely. You know, maybe he's going to help them study. Give me 15 or 16 hours to set up a study session. Old Shelton, what do you got here?
Work and come home, provide you with an email that will be extremely crucial in the opening stages of this hiring process. There are some valuable pieces of information that I have taken a screenshot of.
Wait a minute. Why would you need to take a screenshot of information? You can't just share that with the students? That's a little suspicious, taking a screenshot of.
And I'm going to send that to you via email. Trust and believe it will be something that you will appreciate to the utmost.
Well, that sounds really suspicious. Oh, I trust you're going to appreciate it. Why do I feel like he's winking as he's saying this? That's all right.
Keep in mind, we are trying to maximize your opportunities, and I'm doing the very best that I can with the time that I'm given.
Okay, that's a really, really gross thing to say. So if you haven't caught on by now, he has got the answers to the entry test for the air traffic controller exam series. And he's going to give these individuals in this Washington chapter of black individuals of color unifying together to apply to Aviation Industries Club or whatever they're calling it. Come with the stupid, dumbest names for things. Anyway, he's going to get him these answers. He says, this is the best way to expand your opportunities. That's the best way to expand your opportunities. Oh, that's so nice. How kind of him to do that. Actually, wait a minute. Let's talk about that. If you think so little of black people, of Hispanic people, of Indian people, of Native American people, of Asian people, whatever, insert group here, that you think they can't study for the test. They can't, study the material. Behold, over here, an entire collection of textbooks, many of which I taught to students. And I would assign portions of the book to study, and just to make things interesting, I had these crazy things called notes. I know, these are some of my middle school science notes here for those on the live stream. So what I would tell them to do is look on the notes. So look, cellular respiration and photosynthesis, the chemical equations for both. I would tell them to practice drawing this, be ready to label things here. Then when they got to the test, I would hopefully see students who had studied filling in those answers. Crazy concept. I know, it's wild. But if you think that the people that you're working with are too stupid to, or they're not gonna study because they're entitled to this position,
Today when I get off at 11 o'clock, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to finish out that email. I'm going to send it to each of you. And as you progress through the stages, refer to those images so that you will know which icons you should select.
So it's a multi-pathway test. I've never done this before, but flaunting my master's degree in curriculum development, knowing which icons to select, what he's talking about, is either one of two things. Number one, there are questions on the air traffic controller test that are suggesting if this is going on, what is the code, what is the icon that you should select to represent this particular thing. There's a lot of buttons and switches in the aviation industry. As a small time, very occasional pilot, even the smallest of Cessnas or Piper Cubs, they're very complex little things with all the gauges, buttons, and switches. So it's either that, or he's saying that based on some of the answers you provide, you will then go to different sections of the test. Kind of like in different order, you can go down this route and then go through these questions. Either way, that's cheating, boys and girls.
Now, I have a good mind to send it to one of my HR representatives first and give them the opportunity to sign off on it before you actually click it. But in the sake of time, I'm going to send it directly to you because I'm about 99.99% sure that it's exactly how you need to answer each question in order to get through the first phase.
There you go. All you got to do, you got to answer these questions in this exact way, and you will get through the first phase. And then once it's like one-on-one, I'll talk to my buddy at HR and we'll say, hey, look how black this individual is. Shouldn't they be an air traffic controller? Which is a disgusting thing to suggest. Look how white this person, look how brown, look how orange this individual is. Yeah, that would be a gross way to operate a business. It's a good thing that our air traffic controllers, we have no concerns about the quality of those people. Oh, wait. So, at the end of the day, it's good to know that the most gross discriminatory practices in the name of equity that you were told weren't happening, and you were a racist for even suggesting such a thing, sir, are happening, and they're happening right in front of you. With that said, that's about enough on the bonus tonus site, except for one other thing, a little bit of a celebration for the show here, if you'll indulge me just for a few more seconds. I am pleased to announce that the Tony Kinnett cast has broken into the top 50 political podcasts in the United States. We got notification that this was the case yesterday. We're honored. It's a blast to be with you guys. No doubt it's because of you. It's because of the team. It's because of people like producer Allison, producer Daniel, producer Lou, the fine folks over at the Daily Signal. Can't tell you, I didn't expect this at all. To be in the top 50 of political podcasts is, I don't know why you guys would subject yourselves to listening to some disgruntled 29-year-old Hoosier prattle on. But I'm deeply honored that you do, and I'm very thankful for those of you that tune in. So that's exciting. We do have two other small announcements that are coming. The very first season of the show is about to close. I think we're going to close the first season and start season 2 at 300. Episode 300 is coming up. We're currently at 287, I think, something like that. And we're going to have a little bit of a celebration. And then we've got some stuff coming just for the YouTube people. So we've got some brand new features of the show specific to those of you watching the show live on YouTube. This is something I've argued for because I can't lie. Sorry, folks listening to the podcast. The YouTube chat is, the YouTube chat is just my favorite. I really enjoy seeing your messages. We do go through and read all of the messages, especially the stupid ones. And again, if you head over to TonyKinnett.com, TonyKinnett.com, you can send us a question for mail time, send us awful tweets, feel free to make us suffer, or just, drop a line, say hello. If you find us on social media, you're a little bit creepy, but we'll accept it. You can send us a message over there as well. It's been a great evening broadcasting with you guys. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow for a fantastic Friday finish. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first out of 93 WIBC. Take care.